In a village lived a poor old woman who'd gathered together a dish of beans and wanted to cook them. So she made a fire on a hearth, and so that it might burn quicker, she lit it with a handful of straw. When she was emptying the beans into the pan, one dropped out without her noticing and lay on the ground beside a straw, and soon afterwards a burning coal from the fire leapt down to join them. And then the straw spoke and said, "Friends, how did you get here?" The coal replied, "Fortunately, I sprang out of the fire, and if I hadn't escaped by sheer force, my death would have been certain. I'd have been burnt to ashes." The bean said, "I too have escaped with a whole skin, but if the old woman had got me into the pan, I'd have been made into broth without any mercy, like my comrades." "And would I have done any better?" said the straw. "The old woman has destroyed all my family in fire and smoke. She seized 60 of them all at once and took their lives. Luckily, I slipped through her fingers." "So what do we do now?" said the coal. "I think," answered the bean, "that as we've so fortunately escaped death, we should stick together like good companions, and unless another misfortune catches us here, we should go off together and run away to a foreign country." This proposition pleased the two others, and they set out on their way together. Soon, however, they came to a little brook, and as there was no bridge or foot plank, they didn't know how they'd get over it. The straw had a good idea and said, "I'll lay myself straight across, and then you can walk over me like a bridge." The straw stretched itself from one bank to the other, and the coal, who was of an impetuous disposition, still hot from the fire, tripped quite boldly onto the newly built bridge. But when she'd reached the middle and heard the water rushing beneath her, she was, after all, afraid, and stood still and ventured no farther. The straw, however, began to burn, broke into two pieces, and fell into the stream. The coal slipped after her, hissed when she got into the water, and breathed her last. The bean, who'd prudently stayed behind on the shore, could not but laugh at the event, was unable to stop, and laughed so heartily that she burst.
Ooh.
It would have been all over with her, likewise, if, by good fortune, a tailor who was travelling in search of work had not sat down to rest by the brook. As he had a compassionate heart, he pulled out his needle and thread and sewed her together. The bean thanked him most prettily, but as the tailor used black thread, that's why all beans since then have a black seam.